Some of you have asked about how I make ladles. There are various ways of doing it. Probably the easiest one is just to find a branch of wood like this with a nice kink in it. This isn't perfect, there are a few knots coming out here. It looks pretty good on the bottom, but then again it looks as though there's a knot there, so these may cause some issues. So you can always find a bent bit of wood, a bent branch, and use that for a ladle. Another alternative is just to get a forked branch like this, and we'll be cleaving down here and down here with the outside, the bowl of the ladle carved into this bit just here. The next alternative is just a branch coming out of a log. This isn't perfect, we're going to give it a go and see what happens, but this branch really is a bit too small for our purposes. I would like it at least another inch, maybe well, preferably a couple or 3 inches bigger in the diameter. Anyway, you see on this one that there's a lot of wood behind the branch here. I'm going to cut it off here. I'm going to cut it off round here, down here as well. I'm going to cut it off here on the handle, and we're going to start splitting down the handle into this lump of wood. A bit smaller now. I'm going to split it down the handle here, but first I think I'll just take it across the pith down here. This is just to make it easier to handle when I'm splitting down the handle. I should have said that this is a bit of willow, just a bit of goat willow. Beautiful wood to carve, probably one of my favourite. Anyway, this is the tricky bit. It doesn't always work, we do get failures. I'm going straight down the pith, or the centre of the pith. And that has already split right off and is probably going to be a failure. Anyway, on to the next one.
You're going to cut out, right?
Let's try splitting this. And again, exactly the same. We just go down the pith. And this one has worked beautifully here. And again on the other side. I don't think this is going to work quite so well. The pith seems to be quite off-centered here. Right. This isn't going to work. The bit of wood is far too small at the end. We're about to get something out of it, a little spoon, but whoever cut down the tree has put a big saw cut in here, which could cause problems. There's a little knot here, not too major, certainly copable with, but not ideal. This bit here is beautiful, there are no knots in the wood at all. We've got a lovely curve going down and underneath as well. We do get our failures at times, and it was probably a little bit of ambitious of me to try splitting straight down the branch here, and as you can see on this side it has come right off out. It probably would have been better if I started splitting here and actually axing it out rather than trying to split it out, but hey, you live and learn. Okay, I'm going to start cleaning this billet of wood up here. I need to take a fair bit out of here and along here. I'm going to clean up the sides, I'll do that first. I'm going to change over axes. This GB carving axe isn't very good for what I'm about to do. I need a square-nosed axe really. So the little wildlife hatchet is perfect here. Right, the next step is to have a really good look at the spoon from all directions and see where the major planes are. If you can see here that this is at a different angle to the handle here, so I'm going to have to just take this bit of wood down here to get that into the right plane. I don't want the top of the ladle sloping like that, or the top of the bowl of the ladle sloping like that. I can't. Is really beginning to come out. What I need to do next is to work a little bit on the bottom. I've just tidied up this end, made it a little bit more even, and there's a huge bulk of wood just here in the handle or the bottom of the ladle here. So the bowl will be starting probably from about here and working round here. There's a good depth of wood there, so I can really cut down into it. But I'd like to take the pith out. Want to get rid of the pith altogether out of the wood. This is a piece of walnut. Believe it or not, it's all sapwood, as a lot smaller walnut trees are. You don't get that lovely brown walnutty heartwood in a lot of smaller trees. And so I'm going to shape up the back and take the pith out now. This is quite easy because we're actually working, because it's a bent bit of wood, we're actually working with the grain. If you're new to spoon carving, it's probably good if you get a marker pen and actually mark a centre line all the way down, and then you can draw either side of that centre line. It's often a lot easier to work to a line rather than just visualising what you're doing in the spoon. You will see that when I'm cutting the corner of the spoon here, that I'm always cutting vertically down. That's the most efficient way to use the axe. So I'm actually moving the spoon round rather than tilting the axe. Also, another thing you may have noticed is that this chopping block is way too low for me. I don't quite know why I'm using it out here to do this spoon on. I'd much prefer to be working at this height. It's far more comfortable and I don't have to bend over. Right, you can see that the spoon is coming on beautifully here. One thing I will be doing is just shortening the length of this bowl, probably to about here, because once I've carved or hollowed out here, it's going to be quite long, and I prefer a sort of slightly more rounder rather than a really elongated bowl. Right, this really is getting there now. That's great. You can see there's a beautiful shape coming into the ladle. I'm going to have to take a fair bit off here as well. I think I'll just begin to do that now actually. If you're unsure about cutting a corner off the spoon, the easiest way and the safest way is by placing the axe where you want to make the cut, lifting the spoon and the axe up together and banging down like that. Not the quickest way of doing things, but it guarantees that you get the cut exactly where you want. Often I use a bodger's bib. This is just a shaped piece of wood on a cord around my neck. It's right at sort of my sternum height, and I find this really useful for putting the end of the spoon on and working all the way down, and I can work right off the end of the handle of the spoon. The other thing that it really helps for is when you've got a corner of wood like here pressing into your sternum, it can get quite sore and quite painful after a while. And quite nicely. I will then work on the bottom of the bowl, and I will project a centre line all the way down here. The cross section here is going to be triangle, with the apex of the triangle just here, and it'll be flat this side. That means that if I've got a good width here of wood, I can really go quite thin just up here, and that thinness really adds something to the shape or the form of the spoon. Makes it look more delicate. Gouge. I've got two adzes here. This little GB one, which is actually quite big, and as you can see, there's not a lot of room for manoeuvre down here. The other adze I've got, which I really like because it's so light, is one that I made out of a gouge. And basically this gouge has been used so much that it's only worn down, so there's 1.5 inches left here. And I just drilled a hole in the handle and banged the tang right in. This is a lovely little adze because I can use it really fast, it's really controllable, and it doesn't fatigue me like the GB adze does. Anyway, when adzing out the bowl of the spoon, I keep my arm right in. My elbow is touching my waist down here. I need as much control as possible. My hands are a little bit dry. Just moisten them so I've got a better grip on the handle. And away we go. Right, I'm actually running out of room. The radius is far too big. So I go over to my little It's good to keep well away from the edge, because one misaimed cut can change the shape, or the shape of the spoon by quite a lot. I've done more or less all I can with the adze now, and I'll be going on and using a hook knife just to finish off the inside of the bowl. You can see that it was really necessary for me to shorten the length of the bowl of the spoon, because as I've taken a whole load of wood out of the handle here, if I kept it at its original length, it would have been a really elongated long spoon, and it just wouldn't have worked so well at all. So here are some of the other spoons I've done. This is a very similar one, again out of walnut, but on this one you can see that I've just left or put in a little hook, so this actually hangs up beautifully on a wall rack, or even on the side of a saucepan or bowl. Very similar size and a very similar shape. Quite often the wood sort of does dictate how it splits out of the log, does dictate what your spoon is going to be like. Now I've got another one here made out of beech. And again, this one is a little bit bigger than the walnut one I have just made. And finally, a very a lovely little bold spoon for getting pickled onions or olives or whatever out of jars, or anything that's quite deep. Okay, just to compare sizes.